My name is Brandon Hagan, and I'm one of the owners of Twine Graphics and Screen Printing in Franklin, Tennessee. And um, I'm an owner that also works for the company and doing sales. So I guess that's a little bit subjective as far as the education that I needed for where I'm at. I had an interest in t-shirts and screen printing when I was young. I was into skating and BMX and that whole culture. T-shirts were a big part of that, and I was always a fan of that scene, and that got me into liking t-shirts and kind of wondering how they were printed. That whole process. I went to school for art. I have a fine arts degree, a BFA actually. So it's the one that's a little bit more involved. That has painting and ceramics and all that kind of stuff. And while I was in school, I started actually getting more into screen printing. Screen printing was one of the courses that I took. And while I was in that course, I started working for a screen printing business on the graphics side, actually. So I was working the front of house, and it was a small shop, and I ended up sort of running that shop while I was in college. The owner was sort of older, and he wasn't really involved anymore with the graphics side of things and order taking, and he just kind of preferred to stay in the back and print the shirts. So I learned a lot while I was there, and really sort of developed a love for the industry, and just sort of held on to that, developed a business plan while I was working at that shop, and just kept notes and kept developing it. And I was encouraged by some professors to look into that side of things, just because knowing what my passions were, and knowing that a lot of people, want to start a clothing line. That's kind of a big thing. So you have to set yourself apart from others. Yeah. As we developed our business, really from the early stages, tried to keep as little debt as possible. That's really been kind of one of my core beliefs throughout the business process. We actually sold jobs to make money. So we found ways to creatively source parts of the process. And, we didn't have equipment when we were first doing it. So we actually sold jobs and sourced them through another printer to build capital in order to buy our first set of equipment, because we did believe in doing it hands on and being the ones that actually produce the product. But we had a design background, my business partner and myself both. John Bonds, my business partner here in Franklin, and we actually had the same degree from the same college. And so we were working together, we were designing projects and still facilitating a lot of it, but that's how we bought our first set of equipment. And then we were the, I guess, stereotypical garage business that you hear about. And we were printing shirts out of a small Amish built shed in my business partner's backyard that his landlord, who was also a family friend, ran us electrical out to. And yeah, it was probably 120 degrees in there in the summer, and however cold it was in the winter because it wasn't insulated. But we designed all the shirts and then printed all the shirts at night while we both still had full-time jobs. And we offered delivery for free at that time. We'll say that because pickup wasn't really a great option. Yeah, we actually founded the company, formed the LLC in 2011, and we rented our first brick and mortar location in 2012, and hired our first employee. That was over off of Columbia Avenue. We actually moved about 3 buildings down from there. Was our second location, and that was about, I guess, 3,000 square foot building. So it was a little bit bigger and allowed us to grow a little bit more. That's the point where we actually got automated equipment and increased our production capacity and quality. So that increased consistency. Obviously, we've maintained a strong focus on customer service. So once we focus on customer service and we're able to have our output match that, we were able to grow pretty exponentially. We grew a lot in that space. And then now we're on our third brick and mortar production facility. We're right at about 6,000 square foot. We have 3 automatic presses and 16 employees. I haven't used a design program in probably 5 years. Um, it's a lot of it is in development. Creativity still comes into play. Dealing with people is probably the biggest thing. And I think that, the older you get and the more you do business, the more you learn that everything's really just all about people. It doesn't really matter if you're making t-shirts or, helping somebody with their bank account. It's all just about being able to work as a team and work with people. Hmm. Well, it's not always easy. I guess. I don't know. I guess when you're young, you think that owning your own business maybe is the easy way to go because you don't have to work for somebody. Um, I might have been surprised when I was younger to hear somebody say that it's definitely not easier than having a job, but I think it's very rewarding. You just have to be, willing to deal with the highs and lows and the responsibility that sometimes falls on your shoulders for being the person that's not only in charge of yourself, but other people as well. If you're going into graphic design and, um, you know, that type of art process, just be aware that it's different than fine art. And a lot of artistic people that, want to actually be able to consistently make a living, your mindset is to go into graphic design because, even professors will tell you it's hard to make a living as somebody that does painting or ceramics. There's more commercially available jobs in graphic design. um, you do lose a little bit of that creative freedom, so you can have creativity within graphic design, but at the end of the day you're typically doing something that is all about what the customer wants. So that means that you're going to have to be okay with making concessions with, your creative concepts, and realizing that when you're dealing with the customer is always right. And that's a little different than when you're doing a painting, because that's your own personal artistic expression, and that's just a little bit of a different animal than what we do. Well, Franklin is a fantastic place to work and own a business. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit here, which is part of what makes it so good to have a business to business business, which is what I own. And that means I deal with a lot of other entrepreneurs and a lot of other small business owners. And having been in that world, I can say that it's a really great community for that. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, which is why I'm here and not in the small town that I'm from. So